just right out of high school, never went to college, and he has a tiling business. And then this week I hired a landscaper, same thing. And I forgot who he was. I didn't seek him out. I went on and did a search in my town for who's recommending. And then I didn't see him. Then I did an AI search and said, you know what, find me everybody in my town or in my county that does lawn service. And he popped up at the top. So he came over and I'm like, holy cow, it's Alex. And I'm like, how you doing? I got 35 people working for me now. So that was, but the big one, another big one was last year or two years ago. This was, we had a kid who pitched, came up with the idea of recycling underwear. That's crazy. Well, last year he pitched it as a part of a contest at the University of Vermont with 3,500 other people around the world, and he won a free ride, a 4-year scholarship to the University of Vermont on his idea.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona, and this is going to be an awesome show. If you'll all love it, but I'm going to love it more than you do because I love tech. And the problem with tech, I was just telling the guest, is it's not a people business in a sense. Is I just got hung up on, and I had a problem just this morning working with a customer service on tech, and it needs help. And my guest today is going to blow you up on how you can really help tech from the people aspect and other things. Plus, he has all the experience, and that always makes it better. Before we start, here's our gratitude for today. You're capable of such great things. I think you are awesome. Great things, not just good things, okay things. You're capable for great things. And by the way, that's my guest. He's been doing some great things, so let's bring him on. Joe, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, Joe, I'm getting to know you before the show, and I love, you mentioned sympathy and empathy, but I want you to start with that story from your high school Shark Tank that you do and what the result was.
Sure. I just had a session here on Monday morning, or was it today's Tuesday? Yesterday. So, as I said, before the show, I belong to Entrepreneur Organization EO, which is a global organization, and it's for those that it was Vistage and Young Presidents Organization, more along those lines, EO. And one of the things we do is go to local schools and help business programs. And in this particular one that I spend a lot of time at, it has an entrepreneur class. Actually, they have two levels of entrepreneurship 1, entrepreneurship 2. And what they do is their final project for the semester is Shark Tank. So they put the kids in a group of 4. They got to come up with an idea and they got to pitch it like a Shark Tank type pitch. And they asked us to be the sharks, and I'm like, I will not be a shark in high school. I said, I'd rather spend more time helping the kids with their presentation. So we go in a couple times a semester, and we start off with their idea. Monday was the idea, right? What are you thinking? And we let them come up with ideas, and it doesn't matter how crazy they are. And we kind of work through them and start to educate them a little bit how that might pan out into a business and so on. So they do their idea, then we come back later after they write their business plan. Now, meanwhile, they've had just about a whole semester of entrepreneurship, so they understand business plans and they got all that stuff already. This is the project. Then we go in with the business plan, then we follow up with presentation. So we help them idea, business plan, financials. We start talking about because they always want to build stuff. We're going to build a building, and we're like, well, you could build a building, you could lease a building, or you can go and have it, manufactured over here if they're making a product. And then we help them with the presentation, and then finally we go watch them pitch their ideas. So what I was saying is that payoffs, 3 big payoffs here. It was this year, 3 big payoffs. I didn't tell you the third one, which is a really big one. The first one was I recently, or this year, I hired a contractor who was a student 8 years ago to redo my bathroom. More tiling, and just absolutely top of the line customer experience, just right out of high school, never went to college, and he has a tiling business. And then this week I hired a landscaper, same thing. And I forgot who he was. I didn't seek him out. I went on and did a search in my town for who's recommending. And then I didn't see him. Then I did an AI search and said, you know what, find me everybody in my town or in my county that does lawn service. And he popped up at the top. So he came over and I'm like, holy cow, it's Alex. And I'm like, how you doing? I got 35 people working for me now. So that was, but the big one, another big one was last year or two years ago. This was, we had a kid who pitched, came up with the idea of recycling underwear. That's crazy. Well, last year he pitched it as a part of a contest at the University of Vermont with 3,500 other people around the world, and he won a free ride, a 4-year scholarship to the University of Vermont on his idea.
Wow.
It was crazy. So when he was doing it, we were like there. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because I forgot about it. You see, so this semester I have 3 classes, and I see maybe 3 groups of class. So I'm seeing 12 or 13 a semester. I forget. And a lot of them, the ideas are the same. It's not really busting chops. It's really just planting the seed because some kids are there because they took an elective and really can care less. But still, a lot of them are going to be entrepreneurs. They don't know it yet. So, but
Yeah. That it's crazy because how many high schools in the country have entrepreneurial classes? I know
there's
I'm
not a
saying,
lot. There's not a
and
lot.
college is even worse, I think, or maybe
Uh,
a little bit more, maybe.
it's in this teacher unsung hero because she pushed for this. In the beginning, it was like they were ready to cut it, and now she has now she has 2 of them, 1 and 2. So if there's an advocate, and that's something I think that I'm taking away now, where I think we're going to have to go and push a little more, because and as we know, even in the trades, you know, these kids are going to school for psychology, and there's nothing against psychology, you know what I mean? But a lot of times they're taking that because they don't know what they want to do. And there's just a lot of, there's going to be such a huge need for the trades here, as we know. So I think that there's nothing wrong with, um, you know, if you're going to go to trade, you still have to know business, even if you're not. I always say this to everybody because one of the other things too in the class is they have to do a presentation on a stage. And public speaking, is we all know, is the kiss of death for everybody. So that's the other thing we say. Listen, sooner or later you're either going to be doing a business or you're going to be in a business, and you're going to have to talk to somebody, especially the Gen Zs, and everybody's down on them. But I got to tell you something, they're smart. They're not, this is the other thing. It's almost selfish and not so much a service, as I love sitting with them and just listening to them and just the way they think and what they're talking about, and kind of, you know I pick up on their lingo, so I use a lot of their lingo, which they think is
Yeah.
really funny. But it really helps me understand things a little better too, because now I'm seeing them, and I have 2 or 3 case studies of working with Gen Z on projects, and I can't go too deep because of time. But a lot of times when I go in to do a job, or we go in to do work, I need someone inside the company to kind of be with us for the project, and they always going to give me the person that they could give up, and it's usually the new person that came in the door, and it's a Gen Z. I have a client that I did a financial platform for a couple of years back, and I told the kid, he was in payroll. He was a financial student, financial degree, came out, um, and he didn't want to come on the project because he didn't know what it was. I said, listen, we're going to go through all these financial platforms, which you're going to have to learn the ones that are here now, and we're going to replace them. You're going to have to know everything from that comes in the door all the way to the time of reporting profit or loss. You're going to know you're going to know how the whole business works. Well, anyway, the project took about 18 months, and less than, I'd say, 16 months after the project, they created an assistant controller position for him. He was the assistant controller of the company. You know what I mean? Like, because he
Beautiful.
knew everything, and nobody else in that company had A to Z on the new system.
Yeah.
So, and he had the aptitude, and he was a smart kid. And Gen Z just loves to go right to the top anyway. They want to go from, working to being the president in like a week. That's why I was kind of bust on them.
Speed. Yeah.
Yeah,
They want to
yeah,
do it quickly. Well,
yeah.
it's
They want to do
something
everything.
interesting, Joe, you're saying about knowing the language.
Yeah,
One, about Gen Zs, anybody listening,
yeah,
know their language because that's
yeah,
how you're going to be your customer or your client. But two,
yeah,
know the language of the company. That's what you
yeah,
do. You got to walk
yeah,
in a company. That could be their financials, their culture. There's so many
yeah,
languages. I love that you
yeah.
said that. It's
It,
powerful.
it really is. And as I was saying, that's the thing is being a techie, because I am by heart. You would never know it, but it's really because almost when we're being brought in, when we are being brought into a client, it's typically they're looking at feature sets, I say. we need a new this, we need a new that, or this isn't doing what we wanted to do. And so I literally have it listed down somewhere. When I go in and talk, or one of my people go in and talk, and we're like getting requirements, it's like we need this, we need this, we need this, and it's like your system does that today. Why didn't you use it? Your system does that. You just haven't implemented. Well, we're getting the near end of life, and we should have, but we didn't. So we want the new system to do these things. And what the reality is, I always tell a lot of clients is when you look at technology, I call it the 6 week picture. 6 weeks after the implementation, that's all the tech they ever implemented, and it could be that way for 1 year or 10 years. And I mean, well, depending on the vertical, some of the
Sure.
old, service industries have older systems, but they have never exploited anything in their system other than what they learned in the training. And, 4 to 6 weeks after training was over, and they implemented, and that was it, and they were done. So those are the kind of things that we look at from a culture standpoint, and understand, so we could say, okay, well, let's make sure that doesn't happen again. But more importantly, it's really understanding the language of, and here's the thing, department silos, and there's always silos, and you have to learn the language of all the silos.
Yeah.
I always say, look, sales is, operations is expecting guacamole from sales, and they keep throwing avocados over the fence. So it's like, okay, we got to smash this up and make guacamole. I go, that's one thing, but if they're expecting guacamole and they get a watermelon, that happens too. So the idea is like, the first thing we have to do is understand, that's the first thing before you even talk to a vendor or a solution. We have to understand what our problems are today, and at a high level. It doesn't have to get crazy, because I think that's where people get scared, or they want to document everything. Oh, let's
Yeah.
write this down. No, we need to get the key leaders in together and just put it up on a flow chart, a very simple thing, and all talk. Well, this is how I do things, and hey, yeah, but you do that, and I don't get this. Oh, I didn't know that. It's very common, you know.
What they don't know happens a lot. What they don't know, they don't know.
Yeah,
And tech is interesting. It's like subscriptions. People, we have the subscriptions. Like I didn't know I had Netflix for last year. I
yeah.
spent, $200.
Oh,
Tech is
yeah,
the same way. I talk to
yeah,
apps and techs.
yeah.
Like, oh, I
Oh,
had this app. I just went through all my apps. Got rid of about. I do it. I have 5 apps. Like I pay for this app. I haven't used it once. That's where you come in with sympathy and empathy,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And now it's even worse, because now departments with credit cards, it is absolutely, shadow tech. There, it used to be in the day, I used to say back in, and I'll date myself, but when I first started the first tech company, the support company, I always said we should all go to every airport, jump on a plane, and get in the first class and rip out all the magazines, because that's where the CEOs always went in the back of the magazine, sharper image stuff. And look, I can do all my contacts with this, and it's like, yeah, at your home PC, fine, but out in a networked environment with 3,500 other computers on a network, that's not going to work for you. But it was hard to tell them that. And nowadays there's no magazine. It's just people are clicking out on the internet and downloading apps. And even in, you see a lot even in regulated industries, HIPAA, financial industries, where there are people are, I mean, I've been in environments where they've had proprietary AILMs, like they, say Copilot or ChatGPT, they bought their closed, their proprietary version of it. But there's 3 people out that have subscriptions to ChatGPT or free ChatGPT, putting company information out. You know what I mean? And it's like that is just, it's way, way worse than it used to be. But part of the thing is that you just can't, I'm going to say you can't, it doesn't work just to say you can't do that. You know what I mean? You can cover your
Yep.
butt by saying that, but that doesn't stop it. You
Yeah.
have to understand, how do you change that?
How much money are they losing too?
It could be. Sometimes it isn't, but
Yeah.
but it could be.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not a lot, but it's a death by 1,000 transactions. We all know how that goes.
So how do you
It is
bring
way.
empathy into technology?
I'm sorry.
How do you bring empathy into technology
Yeah.
and the
So
business?
I think, like I said, I think the biggest thing I've got was when I started the first tech company, I pivoted to be the business guy, and that's where I started to learn. Really, the first point of empathy is the CFO. Finance gets all the crap. It comes over the wall. There's spreadsheets. There's stuff in people's heads. They're like, what does this invoice match up to? Why don't, it's crazy. And so I learned that, because I had a tech company, we had cool stuff. But at the end of the month, I'm like, well, how much money did we make? And it's like, well, I'm waiting for the engineers to put their time in. They didn't put their time in the right place. And it's like, I'm like, how could this be? How could we be a tech company and have these issues? You know? And then I'd seen clients going through the same thing. So, and it's always at the financial level. That's the end of the line. Because typically when you buy systems, it's always at the point of sale. It's focused on getting the sale and servicing the client. Those are the two big focuses. And it's never all I call lead to cash. When I look at everything, it's lead to cash. You putting something in today that does cool stuff for sales, that's great. What does it do to the handover on the fence? And how does that trickle down into finance? If you can't answer those questions, you got to stop before you start implementing stuff. And I'm not saying that, you don't implement things just for a department or just for you could, but you have to understand how it goes and lead to cash. That's my big mantra. And I know we didn't talk about it before, but that's how I look at everything when you walk in the door. It has nothing to do with technology. Well, it does from a standpoint of what are you using today, but it's also process and people. Sales, people, process, what are your systems? Operations, people, process, what are your systems? How does that come over the fence? And you got to get the leaders to see all that. And then before you buy anything or do anything, you got to look at those workflows and say, how does this help me? Because that's the other thing. You see in these in the mid market, you get a strong tech person, meaning let's say the director of sales is really strong. They'll come in and muscle out and say, we need a new CRM. And everybody's looking and saying, why? Because it doesn't do what we need to do. And that's why I can't get this. And it might be legitimate. You know what I mean? But they're
Yeah.
really just looking for their sales thing and they push it through. And everybody's like, well, he really, they're almost afraid sometimes to say no. You always have that strong person. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think that too often companies find themselves having all this tech and it's not integrated. CFOs always say that. That's what I hear from CFOs. I got all this stuff and it doesn't talk to each other. It's like that's why because people come in and drop it in, and uh, so I hope
And
that
it
kind
could
of
be thousands of dollars because you're working with mid-range
yeah,
companies.
it gets
It get
pricey.
expensive, right?
It gets very, and that's the thing. So when you look at like ERP, and we're in the middle of a big ERP now, and it's seven figures. For mid market, that's a lot of money for but they have to do it, and in this case the client has just been absolutely phenomenal in listening. I'm saying they're doing everything we're telling, but they're listening to everything we're saying, and we're going through it the right way, and things are going well. But that was the things. Everybody's talking to each other. Everybody, we stopped and said, here's the big picture, and like, and it was literally like I couldn't have scripted it better. I had a person in sales look and talk to the director or not director of operations, one of the managers in operations, and say, I never realized what that did to you guys. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, so that doesn't happen every day, but that happened there, and I'm like, this is exactly it. And it's just a matter of slowing down. And what we do, there's nothing magic to what we're doing. As a matter of fact, I tell perspective, I'll give you my, my 10 steps are out on my website of what I do. There's no magic to it. If you have the time, which most clients don't, you could do it. And if you have, the expertise, and some clients do have that in-house, very few do because it's a lot of times you say requirements in this client, the specific one I'm talking about now, they give me like 35, 40 requirements. And after 5 weeks, we went in and we turned around 304. You don't have 35, you have 304. And why I say that, because when you're going to go to the company, the solution provider, whoever that is, Microsoft or NetSuite, whoever it is, or the integrator, the more detailed you are for them, the better. That's where when you get into project stuff where things get missed, they expect to hire the consultant who wants to do the right thing, and meaning the solution provider. But they're not going to come in and pull 304 requirements out of you. They're gonna they're gonna answer those 30 or 40, but that's not the answer to your problems. And
Yeah.
and everyone's like they stink, and it's like no, they don't. They don't stink. A good solution provider is you got to have them, but there's so much missing that people don't know, and they're not going to get it from the solution provider. I don't, and I know great solution providers. They want to do that, but if they did, the price tag would be,
Astronomical.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And where
Yeah.
clients will pay me because, or someone like me because I'm on their side, You know what I mean? We're part of
And
their
you're a
team.
fractional because you're
Yeah, and
not
I'm
costing 5 million
fractional.
a year,
Yeah,
which I know you
exactly.
wish you got, but
Yeah,
they can
well,
pay you
yeah.
part time to do
Yeah,
the work.
and
Yeah,
that's
that's
it. And
powerful.
so so a lot of times
Good.
if all goes well, the vendor loves us just as much as the client does. Because now we're on the other side where it's like clients forget, oh, wait, we didn't buy that integration. No, you didn't buy that integration. Well, I thought we talked. Yeah, we talked about it, but we never signed it, and here's why. Because we talked, here's where it is, here's the notes, here's what we talked about. So that helps a lot too, because as my previous life in my other company, you always go above and beyond, right? So when you go 8 times above and beyond, and on the ninth one, you go back to the client and say, hey, listen, you know, I can't go, I did this 8 times already. They don't care. And it isn't even like, it's not even like a lot of them are being disingenuous. They just forget. You know what I mean? And sometimes
So
it's a
much on.
director who made a promise and going back to CFO, it's like, I can't go back for more money. You know what I mean? I can go back to tell the CFO, this is not what you said, because I'm not the director of IT or the director of
Yeah,
operations, you
you're a
know?
part of the family in a sense. You're the
Yeah, in
outsider.
that sense, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's
So I
good.
see that a lot. That happened to me all the time, and you either got to you work it out. I say all the time. It happened a lot. So that's where we're helpful for the vendor side. But I think it's if you're especially going for big stuff like ERP or big financial platform, big stuff like or AI now. AI is another one. People are really they're going off the deep end because they feel they're so far behind. And, it goes back to it's like anything else. If your last ERP implementation didn't go well, it's not because of the technology, it's because of the preparation for the technology. And the same thing's going to happen. All AI is going to speed up your problems. That's all it's going to do, you
Yeah,
know? So we're trying to tell
it's
our
a great
clients
point.
and educate people to, if you don't have your workflows down, it doesn't matter. And you're not going to replace 10 people next week. It's just, that's not what there's certain areas that's going to help people do their jobs better. And I always tell my clients in the mid-market, Sally and Bob that are sitting down at the end, and AR and AP that's been there for 20 years, no one's coming out of school to do those jobs. They're just not. And you have to prepare for the future, which AI will replace a lot of that. But don't think it's going to happen next week. And, it's let's get them some help because they're drowning right now a lot of times. And it also helps us prepare for the 5, 6, 7 years down the road.
Education's big too. What you're doing is a game changer. Because I keep saying, I've said it twice already in the podcast, but you don't know.
Yeah,
But what you know when you see it is all the money going out. The culture, you're a big culture changer.
yeah,
What you're talking about, a lot of culture, and I love that. We're
yeah,
coming to the end here.
sure,
AI is the elephant in the room. I told you about that doc that just came out.
yeah.
It's September, March 31st. What do you see AI look like in the next few years?
Few years. It's hard to say few years because when
Okay.
you just seen Claude Code come out, which is just it's crazy. It's really crazy. But I still think like anything else, you have to and this is my opinion. So everybody listening, take it as opinion. Um, I use this example almost like in 1999 when the internet really popped and everybody says you're never going to leave your house. You're never going to have to leave your house, right? And in 1999, I said, I looked at it, and I'm like, I don't see me buying dog food on the internet anytime soon. Now I buy dog food on the internet now. You know what I mean? But the point is that it took years before that happened. We're kind of at that point with AI. It's not going to be the same amount of years of 10 years to be for dog food, don't get me wrong, but it's the same kind of thing because where you look at the market, it's all been built around tech in the last couple of years. The market bubble is tech. So they're pushing it and pushing it. And there's real stuff there. But in the mid-market here, there's two areas that I see where there's impact in the front end and the back end, meaning the front end of sales, there's a lot of stuff, low-hanging fruit where you can apply some of it.
Yep.
And the back end in finance, in AR, AP, and help
Mhm.
there, definitely. But in the middle, not that it can't. I'm just saying is that once again, if you're not ready for it and you're not preparing for it and spending the time workflow wise and getting down, oh, down to mouse clicks. Because what I tell my clients is AI is like a smart intern. That's what it is right now. It's a very smart intern. You have to watch it. It does a lot. It's amazing, but you got to keep your eyes on it. And just that alone, if you're gonna, let's use the Sally and Bob and AP and AR, well, they know their job, but that doesn't mean they're gonna be okay to help implement AI. So it may
Yeah.
cost you more to put it in first. You may have to have somebody, somebody's got to watch it. Somebody's got to say it didn't do this right or hallucinate or whatever you want to say, and I
Right.
got to make an adjustment to it. So, I think that, and I don't like to say next few years because when you see Claude Code come out in some of the other stuff that's just recently, really hitting the market, it's a lot different than it was just 6 months ago or 8 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's going to be changing a lot. But I think what I like to tell, and it is not enterprise clients because it's different, but the mid market is you really got to spend more time on things that your workflows and understanding how your business functions. Know thyself. Know
Yes.
thyself is the biggest thing first before you start. And it's okay to play around, start doing stuff or look at it. I would say, but big transformation, it's you got to be careful. You have to be very careful right now.
Very well said. I like that. Good future. Let's end with a fun question. Get to know you a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
So, where you live, I'm going to reserve a restaurant. Reserve a table at your favorite
Wow.
restaurant.
My
Okay, I
favorite
want you to
restaurant.
do, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever your favorite restaurant is. Me and you're going to go eat. But I want you to invite three people who've been influential in your life, whether
Oh,
dead
for
or
sure.
alive, doesn't matter. And then you're going to order the food for the table. So, what food would you be ordering?
Okay. So, wow, I hate to be stereotypical, but it's going to be Italian for most. It's going to be a steak or Italian for me.
Okay.
My most influential people in my life certainly was my father, but then my godfather, not to be stereotypical again, but my godfather, my father, and then more recently when I started my consulting business, um, I I got connected through one of my EO members with her husband who came out of Bloomberg and was creating a
Mm,
platform, took me under his wing, and started to help me in my consulting practice. And then he passed away unexpectedly. And it was sad because it was like he was such a great mentor. And I'm like, I couldn't imagine for the family because it was just a great family. All the kids were involved in their business. They had financial services business, and I know the family very well. And I'm like, I felt ripped off. I couldn't imagine how his family felt. But I say
yeah.
those three people to me, personally influential, and then also business influential, or I would say, professionally
Yeah.
influential.
Great table. I love when you bring family, and it's always beautiful. Thank you for being a servant's heart in technology. We
Oh, it
need more of
was.
you out there. We need to duplicate you somehow. But I know people
I don't
listening.
know. I don't know if my wife will agree with that,
Yeah,
but
maybe not. Yeah, same thing. I agree. But how can people reach out to you, connect with you, and learn more?
yeah. So, we are Compass Left, just the way it sounds, as crazy that it is. CompassLeft.com. I'm out there. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Joe Infante, Infante. But the easiest way is to reach us right through our website and info, and we'll get back to you. And like I said, we can't help everybody. We're not huge, but if we can help, and you're willing, we're all in.
Well, I'm a big tech guy. I'm going to end the show with this audience. If you stayed to the end, I hope you did because you're going to learn a lot. The first three people that reach out to me or Joe and mention the podcast, I'm going to send you guys a gift, something to do with tech, maybe. So
Cool.
reach out to me, get a gift, but learn about tech through Joe.
That's
He's
awesome.
proven expert. So
There's a
let's do
Joe.
that.
Yep, I appreciate that. That's great. Love teaching.
We'll figure that out. He'll just get me the information, or if you reach out to me personally, mention Joe and the
Absolutely.
podcast, and we'll get you taken care of. So you three people reach out again. Thank you, Joe, and audience. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's so many reasons why Joe is a perfect reason. Share this podcast out and impact people's lives with technology. I know you'd be happy you did that, and they would be as well. With that being said, me and Joe want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast. And we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.